is my pleasure now to introduce our morning keynote speaker, Lon Southerland. Lon is the former Senior Director of Global Food and Beverage for Marriott International, and he is now the Senior Vice President of Development for American Blue Ribbon Holdings. Lon is a prominent food and beverage industry executive known for taking Marriott's The Bistro, Eat, Drink, Connect concept from inception to the most rapidly growing fast casual restaurant in the U.S. There might be some people that would disagree with you there in this room. Overseeing 750 restaurants, opening one business a day and 2,500 coffee venues. He holds a career-long record of key contributions that include 4 Inc. 500 awards as COO, development of Starbucks' #1 F&B program, creation of 7-Eleven's 120 million fresh food concept, and recognition from the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and other media as an industry subject matter expert. So with that, Lon.
Thank you. Well, little did I know that changing my diet would actually have a huge impact on my career, and I'll go back into that in a little bit. But I wanted to just let you know I was with Marriott up until July of this year. I came on board with Marriott to really work on transformation and innovation. And what I want to talk to you about this morning is a little bit about the Courtyard brand, and I think just about everybody out there is familiar with Marriott Courtyard. And 6 years or so ago, it was sort of, a little bit old and tired, and we really figured out we needed to do something. And what resulted from our efforts and our studies was that we ended up creating a fast casual concept that instead of going the direction of our competitors and doing a buffet and folks expecting it to be free and then the quality, of course, going downhill, we felt that going the route of fast casual would be the way to go. And more recently, I joined ABRH, American Blue Ribbon Holdings, and it's a group that has a Charlie's, 99, Max and Irma's, Baker Square, and also Legendary Baking. Legendary Baking is a company that does gourmet pies, and they just won their 500th Blue Ribbon, the American Pie Council. I think they brought home 54. I've got some of my associates here, 54 Blue Ribbons this year, so they do some great quality products. So I'm thrilled to be part of that team and bring some of my transformation and innovation knowledge to the group. I'll be working with a number of the brands to help ensure they become more relevant and where that opportunity, especially with the growing millennial and younger customer base that are moving in. Let's see here. So again, brand overview. We're going to talk a little bit about the Courtyard brand, the Bistro concept, which was developed, also driving transformation, and a little bit of examples of the current product, and of course the food and beverage concept. And at the end, we'll definitely have some Q&A because I'd love to get your insights and have some questions that I can hopefully answer and talk a little bit about things that might be relevant to each of your specific situations. So that being said, let's see a video. What I'm going to do is put on a video that sort of gets you into the space. How many of you have seen the Courtyard Bistro concept? Okay, great. Probably about, I'd say 40% or so. I think it'd be helpful to sort of take you into the space. And recently I was fortunate to receive an award, a fast casual, it was a food service industry award. And I was fortunate that they came out and did a video at one of our properties with me. And so I think this will sort of take you into the space and give you a sense of really what this is all about.
When Marriott International set out to remodel the lobby of its Courtyard brand, it learned that most of its guests were skipping the traditional buffet in search of something quicker, with more coffee options and a better atmosphere. They were headed to Starbucks. The resulting remodel changed the entire Courtyard experience, how guests interacted with staff members and each other, and how they made the most of their time away from home. The reimagined lobby features welcome pedestals that remove the barrier between the front desk staff and guests, media pods, and the interactive Go board with local information. But it all centers around the Bistro, Eat, Drink, Connect, a fast casual concept that replaces the traditional hotel buffet with breakfast, lunch, and dinner menus, snacks, adult beverages, and a complete Starbucks coffee menu.
We rolled out our first prototype at Fair Oaks in Virginia in 2007. And since then, we pretty much ramped up, and over the last several years, we've been opening one bistro unit every business day. We're nearing 800, on our way to about 1,000 within a couple of years. It's the fastest growing fast casual concept, as I understand, in the nation. And I think that really tells a lot, because over the 2008 timeframe, when the economy was having some difficulty, we were able to really ramp it up and be poised for when the economy turned around, which is exactly what happened.
The bistro fits the needs of every traveler type. Boomers like the predictability, while Generation X and millennials like the ability to get work done while being part of the action.
And what we did notice was there's a 27% increase in intent to recommend and also intent to return, which was huge for the hotels.
The bistro menu is Panera meets Starbucks, with seasonal specialties such as Vietnamese-style grilled chicken and a maple bourbon cocktail. Cross-utilization allows for a broad menu selection with manageable costs. It's also scalable with different formats to meet the varying volumes of each property. It's no surprise to learn that the man behind Courtyard's bistro concept spent 10 years at the company that made third place its mantra.
I've been with Marriott about 6 years, and I came on board to lead the bistro from inception to where it is today. And I started off in the hotel industry, then went into baking, became Starbucks' largest food supplier on the Inc. 500 for 4 years in a row, and then also joined Starbucks thereafter and worked on development of their lunch program and working in operations. And after that, went into 7-Eleven and ran fresh food and bakery for the US and Canada. And it's great to have come full circle back into Marriott and the hotel business. I'm really enjoying what I do.
As the bistro store count continues its steady trajectory, Southerland and his team will be focusing on training, social media, and a unique adult beverage upsell program rolling out soon.
I work with an incredible team, lots of passion and creativity. I'm humbled to work with them. It's a phenomenal team effort. The interest and support of the food and beverage community has been awesome, especially FAIR and CSP. The opportunity to keynote and to get out there and learn more about others in the industry and learn from them. And something that I always remember when I think about what we're doing here, and that's J.W. Marriott's quotation, and he said, "Success is never final." And really, when you think about the sustainment of this program and keeping it nurtured and going forward, success is never final. We've always got to be looking at what the opportunities are to improve for our customer. Great. So one of the things we did when we first started this concept, we developed a team, and we called it our sustainability team. And what that meant to us was, of course, we understand sustainability, and there are reasons for that, and much of that was spoken about yesterday with Scott and others on sustainability. But we looked at it from a standpoint of, how do you nurture and grow a program? One of the things that Marriott did earlier on was, with the Residence Inn, for example, we develop a great program, put it out there, it would be wonderful, but we wouldn't come back to it for a couple of years. And we felt with this particular project, it made sense to put a team in place that would nurture, look at what's the competition doing, who's our customer, what's important to these customers, and nurture this throughout. And what we developed as a result is what we call a cadence of innovation. So we were able to get menu items figured out, put them on our LTOs quarterly, and every now and then we'd have a home run. And those home runs would generally make it to our core menu. And so we had a process or a cadence of innovation. And of course, we had products built out several months in advance or half a year in advance. You can't get too much further out than that, because then you start getting unrelevant versus relevant with trends and such. But I think it's helpful for you to understand that that's one of the things that we felt was core to nurturing this program and keeping it relevant to our customer base and also to what's expected. So the Courtyard brand is in the upper moderate tier, and this is just, I think it's helpful to give you an idea of where it is in relation to Marriott, for example, which is full service. Of course, at Courtyard we don't have room service and such, but you can see where it is within our internal brands. We've got about 19 brands at Marriott now. We're in the midst of developing a couple others. And I will say now, and me, because I'm so used to working there, I haven't really made the transition in my mind, so we'll speak as though I'm still there. With the competitive landscape, you can see Courtyard has got Hilton Garden Inn, Spring Hill Suites, even a Loft. A Loft is more on the lifestyle, engaged in life side of the spectrum, whereas Courtyard is more on the business traveler, get work done on the road type of spectrum. So I think this gives you a sense of where it lies within the competitive landscape. And of course, we all have competitive landscapes, and it definitely gives us lots of opportunity to work and get out ahead of the competition. So what we found out was that the Courtyard was losing market share. It wasn't the Courtyard that our parents might have gone to, or even the one that we might have remembered, 20 some odd years ago. And for those of you that are my age or older. But I think that, we felt that we needed to do something here, and we had to be willing to change. And Courtyard was originally designed by the business traveler for the business traveler. You may have remembered that in ads many years back. And it's really for the travelers who are driven by success, wanting a break from the routine, and want to make the most of their time on the road. When you think about it, we've got our iPhones, and we're getting off the plane, and we can catch up on a couple of emails. By the time we get to the hotel, we might want to just chill out, or take work within the lobby space. And about the brand pillars, it's about smart, comfortably productive rooms, multi-purpose public spaces. I think it's akin to Starbucks. You go into a Starbucks and you've got different seating areas there that you can feel comfortable, hang out, have a meeting. Energizing, stimulating. Of course, it had to be activated, and Wi-Fi does a lot of that as well. And again, choices. Our customer, we found out, really wants choice and control of their situation. You're even seeing that with tablets and some of the technology that's going into each of the restaurants. You're probably using some of those yourself or considering them. And so again, those types of things are very important, giving choice and control to the customer. So the Courtyard strengths, we're the 10th largest hotel brand in the world when you look at the number of rooms. About 975 hotels, 11% outside the US. We just opened up our 808th location in October. Up until I left, we're opening up about one location every business day, so pretty quick cadence of opening properties, very fast growth. And we'll have, by the end of 2015, 839. So we've slowed it down. We've just got about full market penetration, and of course, every new property that opens up has our concept. We did some research, and our customers, we found, we realized we've got our current customer base, but that's not necessarily the growing customer base. So how do we sort of find that out? And one of the things we did was we did focus groups. And I remember there was a lady in one of the focus groups, and she said, on my way to my Courtyard, I'm on an expedition. And I said, tell me a little bit more about an expedition on the way to Courtyard. What do you mean? She said, well, I'm looking for the local Starbucks, the one that's closest to the property, because in the morning, all I want is my coffee and my muffin, or something small, and just hit the road. And so one of the things we did in developing this concept was put together, I guess you could say, it's somewhat like a Panera, somewhat like a Starbucks, because we have Starbucks coffee there, and you can get all of those things as well as sort of fast casual and quick service in the morning. But our customers were control seekers, more Gen X, Gen Y, technologically savvy. They're looking to be engaged in the hotel and what we had to offer. They also wanted a number of things, and it was permission to leave the room. I mean, when you think about going to Courtyard 15 years ago, you might walk right into the lobby, grab your key, and go up to your room. There wasn't really a whole lot of hanging out in the lobby. And about 20% of our properties had food in the evening, so 80% didn't even have a PM food offering. They want a modern and warm environment, more choice and control, that keeps coming up, increased technology, going the extra mile, healthy food and beverage options, and they want it to be upscale. And the healthy food and beverage options is something that really spoke to me. My wife and I saw a movie. Who's ever heard of a documentary called Forks Over Knives? Great. A number of you have. Forks Over Knives is very interesting. It was done by Caldwell Esselstyn, who's the Cleveland Clinic's president of staff. He's also president of the Association of Endocrine Surgeons, and T. Colin Campbell, who did the China study. Fewer people have generally heard about the China study, but that was a 20-year study done with Oxford University, Cornell University, and taking a look at the eating habits of people in China. And there are hundreds of counties over there in China, and they did a pretty unique study and noticed some trends. And some of those trends were that farmers who were further out from the city couldn't necessarily afford meat, and so they were eating a more plant-based diet. And as a result, they didn't have the Western diseases that we see, such as obesity, diabetes, heart disease. However, when they moved to the city and were able to afford meat and those types of things, they actually started developing these diseases. So it's a very interesting documentary. You can actually watch it free online if you type in Forks Over Knives free online. Or I actually did a post this morning on LinkedIn, so look me up on LinkedIn. You can find that link to it. But I think I tell a lot of folks who are good friends of mine about this because it's one of those things that, when you look at what we put on our plates, I think it's important. And it sort of correlates to what we're doing at Courtyard because, one of the things that we weren't very good at was being perceived as a place that had healthy choices. So a couple of the things we did in our innovation was, put some great products on the menu that were more healthy. And one of the items, and I was sitting there last night at the baseball field looking out at, and thinking about, if you hit a home run, that's a long way, to hit it out over the park. And we put a quinoa citrus salad on the menu. And that particular product was a home run. And back then, it was 2010. A lot of people didn't even know what quinoa was. So I think that was one of those things that really gave us some elevation. And again, it was just one product. We also have a healthy start on the menu. The other thing that we did that we found some great results. So one of the things that was required in New York and also Seattle was to put calories on the menu back in early 2010. And so we really learned from that it really didn't change the customer's purchase habits. So when there was some discussion about national jurisdictional requirements, et cetera, that calories were going to need to be put on the menu, we thought, well, why don't we just do this? So June of 2010, we put calories across the menu, across the entire portfolio across the country. And what was interesting was purchase habits really didn't change, but the perception of healthy choices offered went through the roof. And when I say went through the roof, went up probably about 90% from where it had been before. So we saw that as an interesting thing. And the reason we really did it was we wanted to be transparent to the customer. We knew we were going to have to do it anyway, and we thought we might as well get credit for doing this early. I know Panera did that the same year. I think that they probably saw some similar results. And I think when we make the right decision with a customer in mind, we really can't make a wrong decision. And that was the reason that we did that, and it really worked out well for us. But if you do get a chance to see the documentary I mentioned, Forks Over Knives, it's pretty good. I got so into this. My wife actually became vegan. She ate a plant-based diet but ate fish, and she decided she would go on a plant-based diet. And I was thinking to myself, you gotta be crazy, where do you get your protein? And it's funny because when I generally eat more of a plant-based diet, but I'm in the food and beverage industry, so I eat steak as well, but I generally eat more plant-based, and I've noticed that the results on a lot of my tests and such have been much better. And but I wanted to really understand for myself. And so, we went on a cruise, and, a lot of these, Dr. Neil Bernard, and there were probably 20 or 30 doctors that were there talking about this, and I wanted to learn more about it. And as a result, I'm actually writing a book on it, which is going to take me probably a couple years, but I want to be able to help others understand, as I did, where you get your protein, for example. Today I think about it, and that's one of the questions I get most often, where you get your protein. And if someone asked me where you get your hydration, I would say, well, water, and there are lots of places. But it's the same type of thing. I understand more about protein now, so it's one of those things you might find interesting. But I think also that this really helped with the innovation and helping the culinary team understand that it would be okay to try this, and it really did work. And when you think about it, the millennials, the younger crowd out there, but also the baby boomers, right? They're starting to think about healthy, and oh wow, I probably ought to think about some of these things that perhaps will give me some longevity. So that has been a real close tie-in to some of the work we did, and we found some great results from that. The growth, this gives you an idea. We started off with, back in late 2007, one property. And of course, our franchise community said, we're not sure we want to do this. So of course, what we did was we actually opened these up in our Marriott managed, our corporate managed properties to show. And one of the things, and some of you have franchisees, they're like, well, if you can do it in one, how about doing it 2, 3, or 4? And then you do it in 2, 3, or 4. Well, how about you do it in 20 or 30? And they want to have the comfort level that this works. And it did. And it got to the point where the tide shifted, and they're like, wow, we better do this, because, customers are coming into our lobby and guests and saying, I want to stay at one of these. Where can I find another one of these? So it really started turning, and the tide tipped. But you can see the growth, Marriott managed as well as franchise managed, and some pretty quick growth over the years. So some examples of the current product. This is our lobby space, and we designed it around the laptop because, you're all traveling with our laptops and everything. You can see the couch in the front. There's a table there. That table can be moved around. There are plugs. You go into the airport now, you can actually find a place to plug in, at least more so. 10 years ago, you could hardly find a place. But we designed it. It's really a kit of parts. So rather than every lobby looking the same, think about Starbucks, for example. They're not all the same. We designed it, and you can see over on the right-hand side, there's a TV there. That's actually an interactive, it's called a concierge. We call it our Go board. And calories are on there, pictures of our products are on there. You can find local restaurants on there. We put the competition on there as well, the weather, et cetera. So we have that. We also have in the middle there a theater center. There's a business center, a library. So really a kit of parts that work together to help make everything comfortable for the guests. And the bistro, which is at the far end there, you can see on the left, is sort of the hub of all the components that make up our lobby and our activated space. We've got a communal table, as you can see, pretty laptop accessible, lots of plugs. We've got properties that said, we want to do some custom work, and this was San Diego Mission Valley, a 300-room property out there that did some really cool stuff with the lighting. So again, all the spaces don't necessarily have to look the same. We also changed the color package, so instead of having all orange, which was much of what was out there, we started developing a more urban look. And then we have, this is our C bar. So we developed two concepts. One was the S bar, which replaced the buffet area. And then we also have the C bar, which is in the middle of the lobby. So depending on the size of property, this is the larger engine. And one of the things we found out pretty quickly was not all the properties are the same, and they're going to need something a little bit different. So one size does not fit all. So the bistro is what we came up with. And it's ready-to-go food, market-style breakfast. So you've got grab-and-go items. One of the things we figured out pretty quickly was that, if you have grab-and-go items that the customers can grab in the case, similar to Starbucks, you're going to see sales go up from 17 to 23% over what you had previously. Hot breakfast entrees prepared quickly, and the evening transitions into more cocktails and light food. And it certainly activates the space. If you walk into a courtyard now, instead of a vacant lobby with one person at the front desk and a bunch of empty coffee crafts, you actually see people hanging out and enjoying the space. So how did we get there? I talked about the focus groups, and we really understood from our customers what they expected of us, what they wanted from us, what was important. And we actually built that entire space out of that white foam core in a warehouse out in California. We brought our platinums in. Our platinums are frequent travelers, and said, what do you think of this? And they said, well, the front desk is this long thing. It feels like a barrier. Make them like podiums. So we made them like podiums, broke it down, rebuilt it the next day. We brought them back in and got their feedback. And that's how we got to our first prototype, which was at Fair Oaks. And I can honestly say, as a result of that upfront due diligence, we were probably about 90% of where we ended up in the end. And that, of course, saved a lot of money for both ourselves and our franchisees. So again, that was the upfront work. This was the original, and some of you will recognize, you can see that picture on the left, sort of that old buffet look that isn't necessarily too exciting. We sort of internally called it the trough. I mean, you're sort of filling up, and they're very wasteful. You don't really, it doesn't come across as fresh, I don't necessarily think. And you can see on the right there the crafts. This is probably an evening shot around check-in time when there wouldn't have really been anything happening in that space. And of course, the new look, a little more exciting and fun. So this is the S-bar as we designed it. And one of the things we realize is we talk about cadence of innovation, and we talk about how do we evolve this concept and make it more relevant. We're always researching, we're finding out that there are additional opportunities. One of the things we found was that in the evening, we really didn't compensate for dimming the lights as much as we would like to, having it feel more evening and feel more comfortable rather than, kind of walking, when you walk into a Walmart and it's retail and bright and, no one really wants to be in an evening environment that's really bright. So that was one of our key learnings, was that we needed to make that change, and more recently we have. What we've done is get it to more of a chalkboard feel, and this, rather than a white menu, sort of transitions into evening much more fluidly. And then we also have some call-outs there, and those call-outs are promotional items. Those are LTOs, which are done about quarterly. And we have generally in each of our categories, drinks, we do a coffee, et cetera. I'll go into a little bit more about that. But that's what our new menu is, and that just rolled out last week. And this is what it looks like with the S-bar, and you can see even the cubbies underneath the menu boards. I'll go back a couple of slides and show you. See the cubbies there, sort of that bright orange with some apples and fruits and some Tazo tea. And we've sort of kind of gotten those to look more like the evening with wine and beer and such. So it looks a lot more relevant and cozy for the evening. So our aha moment is we're designing this concept, we've got this great concept, we're going to get it out there, we're going to get it across all of our properties, and what happens? We get it out there and we have a property that comes along and says, you know what, we're different. Does anyone have a franchisee or a property that says that we're different? Yeah, you can relate. But really we did see that, for example, there were some larger boxes out there that had a really strong food and beverage core competency. And you've got to think about it. We were taking properties that would fill a buffet. And the competency, the training, what it takes to do that is much different than a short order cook, that's doing everything on the menu to order. So we're taking non-foodies and making them foodies. So of course, first thing we learned was there's really a change management component that we've got to be very cognizant of, because the folks that are doing this prior to with the buffet are not necessarily the folks that are going to be optimal in doing it with the new concept. But the Bistro Plus is something that we designed, and this was more table service. So instead of coming up and ordering, you could actually have a larger menu, and there was a handheld that we would have at the table. So a bit more of a full-service restaurant component for Bistro Plus. I'd say about 10% of our locations were Bistro Plus. But then, of course, the smaller properties, we had a few of those, said, listen, this is too much of a menu. So we consolidated the menu down for them. And one of the things that we did, and I think we did very well, was we took a look at the menu and said, if there's chicken over here in a salad, let's have it in a sandwich, and let's use the cross-utilization so we have a broad menu. But we've got fewer products that we've got to manage and keep up with. So that menu engineering was a very important thing to us, and we always would take a look at what products are really doing well, et cetera, and keeping that in mind. Transformational support. So what we do is 4 times a year, I mentioned limited time offers, and we'll have soup, salad, sandwich, Starbucks coffee, might be the pumpkin spice latte. We worked with them to bring those in, but we would have seasonal limited time items. And some of those items were actually, performed quite well, but we would just bring them back seasonally because they were relevant. Others would migrate onto our annual menu revision. The updates were important because we need to have, obviously, some change in the menu. You've got folks that are traveling quite a bit, and they want to see something a little bit different. So the LTOs very much helped with that, keep things fresh. And also, we did a lot of pilot testing. I think it's very important to, rather than just launch something, test it in the market, whether it's calories or whether it's, whatever you're planning on doing some testing. I think we all know that, but I don't think you can do enough testing in the market to see what the reactions are to products. We also, from a resource standpoint, got an advisory council together. And I've been very fortunate in putting together advisory councils because I think that it really gives an opportunity for the stakeholders, such as franchisees or our managed properties, GMs, owners, and such, to get together in a group and have a good cross-section of your customers, if you will. And not our customers, but the ones that we supported from headquarters were, of course, our properties. So we would have a cross-section of them, bring them in quarterly, and vet our ideas, and give them the results of our tests, and get their buy-in. And as a result of that, we really, I think, worked ahead. And I did something similar when I was running fresh food and bakery for North America for 7-Eleven. I put an advisory council together of all of our bakery providers around the country, and every quarter we would go to one of their locations and we'd bring new products and talk about it. So as a result, I was able to leverage the expertise of the folks who really knew more than I did. And I've done that in a number of occasions in a number of different positions, and I found that to probably be one of the keys to success from a buy-in perspective, from, the fact is we can't do everything ourselves. We've got to really get those around us to help us. And that's been very, very positive. And there are always going to be, for example, the CEO, Jim Keyes, at the time at 7-Eleven said, Lon, we really don't want to create something like this because they're going to start talking about, what we're paying this one and what we're paying that one and that type of thing. And I said, listen, they're already talking about that. What we're going to do is leverage them, and they're going to actually be able to, by going to various locations, critique each other and help themselves out. So it's really a win-win-win all the way around. Training resources is something we did a lot of. More recently, one of the things we found out is in the evening, from an upselling standpoint, the beer, wine, liquor opportunity, there was a gap there. So we got a company called Lobster Inc. out from South Africa. They came in. We did a full program. We would have a particular wine, and we'd have some fruits and different spices around that were reflective of what the taste profiles were of the product. And we did that for our whiskeys and the entire program. And that has been really a great opportunity to train the teams. And I think that's going to continue to do well for us because, just getting that relevant information out there so they can upsell, so they can have confidence in their product and those types of things. So wherever we see a gap, we look at that as an opportunity to refine. And then, menu development was another thing we work on a lot. So one of the things we did also was brand partnerships. PepsiCo is a big partner of Marriott's and very much helped get this entire program off the ground. Also Starbucks, it's a strong brand. It's a bistro standard offering. All properties must offer it. And it's the We Proudly Serve program you're probably familiar with. It's not a licensed location. We had about 100 of those, but we had about 2,500 We Proudly Serve locations at Marriott. We leveraged the seasonal items that Starbucks leverages nationally, and we're able to really piggyback on that, and training and support. And I think really that there are probably in many of your areas lots of opportunities to sort of co-brand, if you will. When you think about social media marketing and that type of thing, I took some master's courses at University of San Francisco in internet marketing, social media, and one of the things I learned there was that you can present your brand and you want to have it pulled through rather than pushing it out. But when you present with another brand, that makes a big difference. And you actually get more recognition and it's more powerful. So an example of that at Gaylord Properties, has any of you been to a Gaylord property? Nashville, National Harbor, great. We were serving a name brand coffee there, but it wasn't a name brand that that really resonated with folks. And one of our vice presidents came up and she said, Lon, I'd really like to get Starbucks into our Gaylord coffee shops, but we can't afford it. I don't think it's going to pencil. And I said, let me take a look at it. And I went back and I figured out for 13 more beverage sales a day, if we sold 13 more units, that would pay our costs and we could move forward. Well, what happened? I put a test into the Nashville property. We went from 350 units per store day to 580 units per store day. 65% increase as a result of making the brand change. But I also went in and I trained the staff and we worked on associate deployment and responsibilities by position and got that all figured out, was able to sort of use some of what I learned at my 10 years at Starbucks and get that in there. But that's an example of where co-branding, having a brand that helps elevate, can really carry that story forth, and I think that was a win for us. Meeting room solutions, one of the things, we're in a meeting room here. One of the things that Courtyard Properties did oftentimes, because they didn't have much of a food selection earlier on with the buffets and such, was they would go outside to Applebee's and have Applebee's cater for them. So now they're able to leverage our menu. So we have a bistro choice, which is a little check menu, and at the beginning of a meeting planner will get it. Everyone in the room can fill out, I want this, 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 this. The property will come by, pick it up at 10 a.m. in the morning, and at noon, everything will be ready, and they'll have a couple hours to prepare it. So that was something that worked out quite well for us. And of course, a bistro market lunch, which was more of like what you might see at Corner Bakery or Panera. And then the bistro market lunch was more along the lines of buffet, but we stayed away from the buffet name because we sort of moved away from buffets. Our brand voice, this is sort of what we looked like. It's, I think, somewhat of a hodgepodge of different brand voices that didn't really coincide or sang like a chorus. It was more like a, I don't know, me singing. Whereas when we looked at changing over to the bistro and really looking at a unified brand voice, we went to this. And this is actually, as part of our development, we're looking at it again, and you'll probably see some more changes. But when you look at the two, there's a big difference. So that was important. Having fun with it as well. And we also looked at limited time offers, and one of the platforms that we used, we did have pizza, but I thought, you know, let's take the team out, let's take a look at what's going on out there. We did find a company that was doing some flatbreads out of a Turbo Chef oven. They seemed to really work well. We had all the ingredients in stock. It gives an upscale look to it, and we've been able to do a lot with the flatbreads. It's been a lot of fun. And actually, this one was invented. The pizza that gave us this idea was actually invented by one of our property teams. So we get a lot of great insight from our properties as well. This is actually starting now, and you can see you've got avocado in both the slow roasted carnitas tacos and the egg whites frittata. I think a lot of these give you a sense of, hey, it's a healthy item and different. So these are some of the items that we've got out there that are just hitting. And again, some of those may make it onto our menu, our main menu. And this is a barbacoa flatbread with Tostitos crunch, which has been a neat one. We also pull this into our online, and you can see if you're out there making a reservation, you go to Courtyard, you can go to the bistro, and it'll give you our entire menu there as well. We also have the flash video, and that's on our menu board. As you walk in, and I mentioned the interactive concierge go board, we'll actually have the visuals. So really try to tie in our work throughout so that the customer can see it from a number of perspectives. We're also a sponsor for the NFL. And we did a couple of neat things. One of them was the Facebook Burger Challenge. So we put out there for our customers, we put out 5 different burger recipes, and we said to our customers on Facebook, what do you think? Vote for one. And we voted for it. It became the game day burger, and that became the item that we promoted. So we got a lot with that NFL partnership. We've done some fun things with NFL. There are a couple of quick videos I want to show you that will give you a sense of how we've tied NFL in. And this is the one from last year. There'll be some new ones coming, but I don't want to spoil it, so we're not going to put those up. But let's run these.
Hi, welcome to Courtyard. Would you like the standard check-in or the NFL check-in?
The NFL check-in?
Rich, NFL check-in.
It's prime time at Courtyard, and here comes Bill. Bill's had an unbelievable season so far with over 54 successful sales calls. Even though he's coming off a red eye, we can expect great things from him here today.
This is awesome.
Welcome to Courtyard, Bill.
That was beautiful, man.
Thanks.
Courtyard, the official hotel of the NFL.
So we had a lot of fun with that one, but we did more than one, and this one's kind of neat. Every time I always crack up every time I see it. So this one, it's just a little different take on it, and I think you'll enjoy it.
And 32 cents for change. 32, like NFL running back Toby Gerhart.
Rich,
Or 32, like running back Jacquizz Rodgers.
32, the number of yards
Gained
gained.
in the miraculous Super Bowl helmet catch play, 32 years.
The age of Tony Romo, Rex Grossman,
And Carson Palmer, 32.
inches. The length of Troy Polamalu's beautiful, perfect, well-conditioned hair.
Courtyard, the official hotel of the NFL.
So the NFL tie-in has been great for us. It's been a fun way to get our name out there. It's been a fun way to have fun with our guests. We have an NFL package. You check in and you get a few extra things that are kind of fun. The property teams have their jerseys on. Everyone sort of gets into it. It just makes it fun. It makes it for a different experience. When you're checking into a Courtyard property, you're not expecting it. It's kind of a nice thing to have a surprise and delight. So we very much enjoy doing that. As a result of a lot of the work that we've done, there's been a lot of media attention, and we were able to get in a number of magazines that just sort of picked us up because of the interest. And I think when you think about it, The bistro is really a brand within a brand. You've got the Courtyard brand, and then you've got the bistro, sort of a brand within the brand. And so it's very similar to perhaps putting in a restaurant brand in an AMC theater, where it's about the theater, but bringing food in makes a whole lot of sense. So I think that when you look at it, a lot of us may deal with just the particular restaurant, and there's not that overarching other brand entity, but it makes it for some interesting challenges. And one of the things we did that we found, we were wanting to get the word out about Courtyard because, I noticed that when I walked into a property, or when a guest would walk into a property, and this was earlier on when we had maybe a dozen or so, they'd walk into the property and they'd sort of stop and look around, and, it was almost like I walked into the wrong restroom, the guys versus the ladies, it's like, and then they realized, wow, this is new, this is the right place, this is for me, and you'd see this smile come across their face. They were so excited to be there. And that was just incredible. And I think when it really hit me was when I spoke to a couple of customers at our Fair Oaks location, which was our pilot location. And I was talking to this lady and gentleman. They were sitting there at the bar. And I mentioned who I was. And I said, what do you think about the experience? And the gentleman said, I was staying at this particular property as another brand down the street. They were sold out. They walked me down here. He goes, this is unbelievable. He goes, I don't have any reason to go back to that property. And he was, had this engaging conversation with me, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I think we've nailed it. And the lady who was sitting next, she just wanted to get a word in edgewise. She was just like, and he was talking, and she couldn't quite. And finally, she got a word in edgewise. She goes, oh my God, my headquarters is right across the street, and they don't even know this has happened over here. I got to go tell them. So, when your customers are so engaged, and you've hit it. And I think that how do you take it from that level up? It's, how do you get out to your customer, get their feedback, find out what's relevant, and then how do you meet that need or exceed it even? So those are some of the things we did. Well, an example of that, and I mentioned, putting together committees that, that help you with that. One of the things we decided to do was, with our innovation, we have our test kitchen, we do several internal panels. Then we bring our brand vice president, she talks about it and says, I like this, I don't like that. We sort of tweak it down to an array of items. What we did was, since we're doing this anyway, we thought, what if we brought the media in? What if we brought in, some of the travel bloggers, some of the local food bloggers, and some people that are well known out there, have them experience another lineup of the product and give us their feedback, and maybe they'll write about it. So we did that. We brought them in. We got some great feedback. Yes, it cost a little bit to bring them in, but what we got out of that was some further tweaking of the product that we put out. They were really able to sort of get a peek under the tent with what we were doing, and it was really good for them, and it was really good for us. So that was just another creative way that we did some of those things. And of course, there was a lot of industry interest in that. Through the Wall Street, Hotel F&B picked up on it all over. So lots of really great attention from that. And then also Mr. Marriott blogged about it on his blog. We were pretty excited about that. The calorie count was something that got picked up by the Wall Street Journal. They wanted to talk about that. And then we were fortunate to get even in the top 100 movers and shakers this past year. So some neat ways of sort of getting our name out there, because you don't necessarily drive by a Courtyard hotel and know there's something great inside. But now what we're finding is, the other day I was in a property, it's been about three months ago actually, and I drove in and there were some ladies in tennis skirts enjoying a Starbucks, and this was midday, and I thought, we don't have a tennis court, and they're here enjoying a Starbucks in the lobby. And we'll have people come by and do interviews, and it's free Wi-Fi, and so people are actually realizing, hey, I'm traveling and I'm generally at a Courtyard, but hey, I've got a local Courtyard. Why don't I just go there? And so we're seeing that space used, and you saw how vacant it was originally prior to making this changeover. So the space is getting used, and I think, when we look at our spaces out there, perhaps there's opportunities for groups to utilize the space for meetings and those types of things casually, but they can enjoy the products that we have to offer, and I think that's really good stuff. So a few thoughts. Again, my favorite, it's over when you walk into the headquarters, there's a loading dock area there. It says success is never final. And that has been, there are a couple of quotations that really helped me, I think, in my career. And one of them is, success is never final. We can develop something, it's great, It's relevant, but it's not always going to be great and relevant unless we nurture it, unless we're in constant evolution. We need to think in the mindset of how do we evolve and how do we remain relevant. It's important for brands. And again, you can do well with a particular brand like Courtyard, but if you don't continue to nurture it to the level it needs, it's going to lose out to the competition. And I think that can translate to a number of different areas. And then it's also better to live one day as a tiger than live 1,000 days as a sheep. The gentleman that spoke early in the conference had that in his book, and I thought that was something that'd be neat to just bring up again. And I think, one of the things that I've felt that's important in really getting out there and moving organizations forward is taking intelligent risk. And I don't think anyone loves taking risk, but when you do your due diligence, you get out there and really understand your customer. You can take risk that what I term it intelligent risk. An example of that I remember was at 7-Eleven, and we had our CEO, and we had Masa Asakura, who was co-CEO from the ownership group in Japan. He came to me once in a meeting. He said, "Lon, I'd love to do 2 for 99-cent donuts." And I thought about it, and I said, "I can do this." He said, "Absolutely." So I went back to the gentleman who I replaced. He actually recommended I take over the baking division there. And I said, "Kenneth," I said, "has this ever been done?" He said, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "Well, what happened?" And he said, "It failed miserably." And I was like, "Okay, so what happened?" And so I went back and I learned that the distributors, the ingredient suppliers, they really weren't all pulled together to be part of the process of making this work. So what I did, and I knew that I could do this, was, we'll have our locations take a little bit less margin. The delivery company that gets the product in will take a little, and we'll put it together in an equation that worked. And as a result, we put that year $11 million to the bottom line. So it was really, let's amp it up, and it's something you still can see in the front of the store on the banners. So I think, again, intelligent risk is one of those things. You can keep your head down, but I think all of us in this room are the folks who just like to get out there and do it. And I think as long as we're educated in what we're doing, and at conferences like this, and pulling in and learning from our peers, those are the types of things that give us the confidence and the information that allows us to move forward and take those bold steps that the competition may not take. And again, the final quote there was mine, and you can see that taking the intelligent risk gives you an opportunity, I think, to transform an existing market. Courtyard really transformed, and we're starting to see others follow what Courtyard's doing now. And I think fast casual is a big part of that. Fast casual is an area that is wonderful for us to be in. We're lucky to be in fast casual. I'm fortunate to be on the NRA Fast Casual Industry Council with Don Fox and Scott from Panera and others. And man, I learn a lot from that group, and they're doing a lot for us out there. So, keep your ear to the ground, and you'll find out more about that. I'd like to do some Q&A. I've got a final video that we can do at the end if we've got time, but would love to get any insights, comments, questions from any of you out there. So there'll be a mic around. I want to make sure that everyone has a mic so that we can hear you.
Morning, Lon. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd be interested in the original feedback from the guests and your franchisees. I think you spent a minute talking about the franchisees, but I'd be interested in hearing about the response to the value equation now that you started charging for breakfast. How was the original response, and how did you overcome that?
Great question. That reminds me of 2 things that we dealt with. One of them was convincing our franchisees that this made a whole lot of sense, because it's a renovation in the lobby. It's funds that we weren't necessarily planning on. We always did, put funds aside, but what we figured out was with the trajectory, the way things were going with the brand, we're going to lose a couple hundred from the bottom line for the year, a couple 100,000. And with the results that we're getting out of Fair Oaks, you could see, whether it's 300,000, whatever the example, what it was, you've got a delta of, $400,000, $500,000 in the bottom line. And all of a sudden, that starts to make a whole lot of sense. And I think also from a customer perspective, the challenge was, people are so used to a buffet. And, the expectation is that it's free. And really, to maintain quality, it's a hard road to follow. When we did make the changeover, we did find that, our growing customer base, who are the millennials, Gen X, Gen Y, they wanted choice. They wanted fresh. They wanted a number of things that, and quite honestly, with the buffet, there's nothing you can't get on the menu that wasn't on the buffet. In other words, the items in the buffet are on the menu someplace. So, and I think that people are so used to, and I bring Panera up again because it's a good example of fast casual. They walk in, they see the menu, they decide what they want, they expect to pay something that makes sense. So that whole we even have people trying to bust their table because they're so used to that. And so I think that that's something that evolved. It was very different. Did we lose some folks? I'm sure we did. But we gained more than we lost. Our average ticket might have gone down a little bit because now we've got people who are buying coffee, which is a nice high margin item, by the way, and a donut in the morning instead of going to the Starbucks. So, we're doing much better, and we've got properties that didn't have PM options that now do have PM options offered. So we did always, to answer your question, we did have customers that said, we missed the buffet. And generally those were the older customers that didn't really want the change, but at the same time, that sort of just faded, and we saw much less of that. And we really don't get pushback on whether it's pricing. One of the things we did was we've got pricing tiers. The property can look at their market comp set and price properly, and it all gets downloaded and those types of things. So that answers your question. Yep. Okay, thanks. Any other questions out there?
Hey, I was just kind of curious how these bistro concepts do on a unit economic basis and how you think about them relative to have they increased utilization across the hotels? Does Marriott purely think about these as sort of unit performers, or is it beneficial to the whole thing and just a snowball?
I love the question because that's something I should have answered and I didn't. So I appreciate that. Wonderful segue into something I should have mentioned. This Courtyard concept, this food concept, has been great. I'm not saying that profitability is up 300%. I might have said it, but I didn't say it. But anyway, it's up a lot. So it's good from that perspective. The customers love it, and we're getting that capture rate. When you think about it, this bistro is in a lobby in a hotel. You don't have people coming from outside. Well, we do. We ask people come in, park the porch chair, go and get a Starbucks and come out and leave because it's quicker than their local Starbucks. But we're not set up to take the business from the other areas. We're set up there for the guests. It's a captive audience. How do we capture the maximum number of those captive audience? What's our capture? So when you think about this model being as successful as it is in a small captive audience, if you've got a 100-room hotel and you capture, 50% of the customers, 40% of the customers, in your business, that's not a whole lot of customers, and that's kind of a scary thing. But our model works even with those lower counts, and that business is growing. Now, that's a great story. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a win-win for the customers, for the franchisees, for the organization. You look at the room rates, and that's the real story, because people want to be in these lobbies. People relate to it. The bistro and the lobby setup, it makes sense for the millennials because they can be engaged, they can be part of the action, they can get their work done. They feel the energy. It's activated. Well, it's also engaging for the baby boomers. They can count on it. They can get their work done in the lobby, but it's for different reasons. But those reasons all come together in the center, and we've sort of hit a sweet spot where we're able to meet the needs of multiple generations with the offering, and we've been very fortunate about that. So a big part of the story is the fact that people want to be there, and the rates are going up, and that's been huge for Marriott. Thanks. Oh, got a question up front. Okay.
I have one over here too.
Alon, in your new role at America Blue Ribbon, in terms of, like, for example, some of the brands you're working with, like Baker Square, whatever, what are you trying to do in terms of, improving relevance, culinary changes, and, obviously another challenge?
That's a great question. After 6 years at Marriott, it was wonderful to work on a project such as that, and really feel like it got to a good place, and I loved what I did. And I had the fortunate circumstances of having a couple other opportunities come up, and decided on American Blue Ribbon Holdings because the company, what they do is they purchase companies that are perhaps not headed up but headed down. O'Charley's was one of their most recent acquisitions, and they're not necessarily in the fast casual segment, as you may have noticed, but I think there's some realization that there is a lot of potential relevance in the fast casual area. And transformation and innovation is not necessarily the comp set. I think innovation, menu innovation, being relevant to the existing consumer, but when you look at the growing consumer base and what's going to be the larger consumer base, it's sort of how do you get to that point? And I think fast casual, transformation and innovation are some of those things. I mean, you look at it, you look out there, McDonald's is now doing coffee. You started to see a bit of a sameness. Everyone, these guys are doing breads, let me do bread. So you start to see the sea of sameness out there. So how do you get yourself to your core competency and leverage that and maximize that? Because that's what's true for the customer. For Starbucks, it's about coffee. They tried to do Joe Magazine. They're doing soda again, but they had Mazagran with soda that didn't take off, and so there are some things that sort of took them perhaps away from their core, and they're starting to realize you got to be pretty engaged with your core because that's what's important to the customer now. So again, I think that there's some understanding within the organization that there's some opportunity. Baker Square brand is a good example. People in Minneapolis and Chicago know it. A store will sell 3,000 pies right before Thanksgiving because people want to take a Baker Square pie back to their family. It's a tradition. So, people recognize the brand, but is it relevant all day long? I mean, we're doing some great things there with Free Pie Wednesday and those types of things, and that's been huge for us. But I think that there's some opportunity there. So, what are some of the things we're doing? I think it's really understanding our customer and what their needs are, but I think it's also understanding ourselves and what our core competency is and how can we meet those customer needs. And it's not an easy answer. There's not a silver bullet. There's a combination of things that you do. It's the 80-20 rule, if you will. So we can chat more about it later, but hopefully that helps a little.
Are you there? Oh, there we go. Hi, Lon.
Hey.
I'm curious about the timeline from when you first started talking about the bistro concepts and kind of where you went through that process and then did launch.
So the time we went from as an organization saying we need to do something to our first full-blown out pilot. It was 17 months, which is pretty quick considering. So there was some work that was done up front even prior to my getting there. I came from I was with Starbucks prior to joining Marriott. And the team did a phenomenal job in sort of figuring a lot of those pieces out. But a lot of it is understanding the customer, and there's a lot to be done to really get to what's the right concept. But 17 months from hey, we need to do something to walking in the lobby. Great. Any other questions? Thank you. How you doing, Mo?
Thanks, Lon. I'm a technologist, so I have to ask you a technology question. So as we know with restaurants, technology is playing a big part, especially nowadays. We talked about mobile ordering, digital payments through your mobile. any considerations about technology as you went through this process, and what tools have you extended to your customers to make their in-restaurant experience better?
Wow, great question. So that is an area of opportunity for us, admittedly. We've just gone through an entire GPOS, which is a global point of sale upgrade. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on there. You know, there are entities out there that are having difficulties with credit card numbers, et cetera. You know, that was an area of focus. How do we really, you know, let's get on top of that immediately. So that's been going on the last couple of years, and a lot of resources went towards that. When I first started, you know, this project was let's take prices off an Excel spreadsheet, plug them in at the property, and we were able to get it to where property can say I'm a particular tier level and it'll be downloaded, and it happens like that, and their menu comes and we're good to go. But one of the things that we were working on right prior to my departure actually was line busting. You know, how do you engage the customer prior to? You know, in the morning it's a much quicker pace. People want to get in and out. We're doing some tests with the tablets for you know, ordering. And you know, that works out. Some of you have been to a Sheetz, for example. Sheetz or Wawa. Sheetz is an example of where you can actually order right there, and you know, it works quite well. So you know, how do you you know, looking at apps, for example, we looked at a phone app, and there's some work being done on, you know, being able to order your meal before even getting to your property. You know, you look at Marriott, you can check in now prior to getting to the hotel. You'll also be able to order your meal. So there's a lot going on there, but it was one of those things we're going to bite off, you know, chunks of the elephant as we go along, and that's one of the huge areas of opportunities. I was talking with Betsy Craig last night about opportunities and such, and you know, we were talking about, you know, at your table when, you know, one of the things that drives me nuts, I can have a great experience in any kind of restaurant, and when I want to leave, you know, I want to leave. And if I can, I've got to, you know, look for someone. You know, so I've gotten to the point where I sort of say, I want the check as soon as I want the check. Well, there's, you know, if that's happening, what about those last 2 drinks you might have ordered, you know, and those types of things. So there's huge opportunity, upside opportunity, big time out there. And that's what we're trying to figure out as a next step. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all the time that we have
Perfect.
today. Thank you, Lon.
Thanks a lot. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.